Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for around about the next 45 minutes. This session is one of our webinar series for management reports that we'll be running, which does pick up on the digital badge that we've offered for attending these sessions. And we're looking at running management reports for either the previous or future financial year. So quite common questions these. If you attended the session, welcome back. If you attended the session this morning, I should say welcome back, where we just looked at the management reports themselves, so the trial balance, the profit and loss, and the balance sheet, so how to run them and how to calculate them. But that was for the current financial year. So as I say, very common question, how do I run it for next year? And I haven't run my year end yet. We'll be picking up on that during the session this afternoon. Now, just before we get started with you all, a little bit of housekeeping. Gives us everyone a couple of extra minutes to get logged in and get set up as well. But a little bit of housekeeping just in case you're new to these sessions. So your microphone is muted if you've got one and you've enabled it. That's done automatically. You can't unmute yourself. So any questions for us this afternoon, you'll need to pop them into the questions panel. You do that by clicking on the little speech bubble icon on your taskbar down the right. It will then open the panel and you'll have access to the box in the bottom right hand corner. So questions, comments, pop them all in there. Do engage with us, keep them coming. You don't have to wait till the end. Remember to click send. We are really good with questions and answers, but we're not that good. We need to see what the question is. So click send. There is an opportunity to download a copy of this afternoon's slides as well if you want them via the handout option. And as usual, this session is being recorded. A link to the recording will be included on the follow-up email. That follow-up email you'll receive approximately an hour after we finish, and it will also include a link so you can register for our other webinars, including the other sessions in our webinar series, and also a link to our recordings page. So if there's any other topics that you'd like to get clued up on and maybe even just refresh your knowledge, then do take advantage of that. So you get that around about an hour after we finish. Now today we're joined by both Abby and Tina. They'll be in the background helping to support me today, and they'll be answering those questions as you submit them. We'll try and keep on top of those as best we can, but do bear with us. There's only the three of us today, so if you a little delay in getting back to you, or if we don't know the answer, I'll just drop you an email later, either later today or first thing tomorrow morning. So you will get an answer to your query one way or another. Now, for the sessions we have been running in this management report series, we're running 6 different topics plus a quiz. And if you do attend any 5 of the 6 original webinars that are listed there, plus one of the quiz sessions, you will earn the digital badge. That will normally be issued to you within about 2 weeks of the sessions finishing. If you aren't quite in a position or you think you might just miss out, because of the dates or something or times when we're running them, we have added some extra dates which will now take place in the first 2 weeks of May. So another opportunity, if you're nearly there, then you can take advantage of that and earn yourself that digital badge. Right, okay, let's have a look at what we're covering in this session though. So quite a small agenda. I'm going to start with a brief introduction. We'll pick up on some demonstrations. So the running order for today is current year. Then I'm going to look at future year. Now, after that future year, I'm going to run a year end at that point in the software. I'm not going to go in depth because we run separate webinars on that, but we run a year end on the data just so we can then look back at the previous year, which is essentially going to be the current year as well. So same set of information. Right at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support, and if there are any outstanding questions at that point, we'll try and pick them up as best we can. So handouts are available, 2 formats. Helen, you've mentioned you were quite enjoying the printer-friendly one. Yeah, you don't want to waste a whole toner cartridge or an ink cartridge just by printing some black on the slides in the background. So 2 versions of those slides are available. However, they are just copies of the slides. If you want the detailed information, you'll find that available from our help center. Right, okay, let's get started then. But again, keep your questions and your comments coming just as we're running through. So one of the most common questions, we tend to get it on the management report session as well when we look at the likes of the profit loss. So I haven't run my year end yet. Can I run a P&L for what will be my new financial year? So let's say we're in the 2024 financial year with regard to Sage accounting data, and we're partway through the 2025 financial year, but that's still the future financial year. Can you run a profit and loss for that new financial year before you've run that year end? So that's the kind of thing that we're going to be covering today. So management reports, I am going to concentrate on the profit and loss in today's session because that's where the majority of questions come from. So we'll start with current year, we'll go to future year, and then we'll go back to the previous year and discuss what options you've got. So we'll get stuck into some demonstrations, a little bit of information about that current year first of all. The main management reports, as we covered in the session this morning, are going to be the trial balance, the profit and loss, and the balance sheet. They're all available from that toolbar within the nominal codes. So you've got those three icons, normally about the middle of the toolbar at the top, within nominal codes. Now, a couple of things to think about, possibly some things you've never thought about, is when you run the likes of a period end or a year end, maybe you're at month end, that type of thing. Think about saving copies of your reports. So PDF copies means you've got them saved. You can easily access them should you need to. You might have a set for each financial year, so you're not having to troll through and pull one out the filing system and like, take a photocopy of it and that type of thing. You've got them saved as PDF copies. Then if you do need them, you can just forward files or even just view those files yourself. But we're going to look at how you go about accessing that type of information directly from the software today as well. But it's a great resource, saving PDF copies of your reports. You've got the company archive. We'll be using that a little bit later on as well. When you run a year end, it's done automatically. An archive is created for you. You can create an archive at any time. So if you're running processes like clearing the audit trail or about to delete records, we'd normally recommend that you do create a company archive beforehand. And then a good little tip as well, if you're on the standard or professional level, these three management reports often go hand in hand. So when you're going to run one, you probably run all three. So think about using batch reporting, just saves a little bit of time. Are there any other processes where you run the same set of reports every single time? So setting up a batch report, which you can access via the tools menu, so tools, batch reporting, there is one already created for you if you've got access to that option. So it just means you can set the batch going, fill in one set of criteria, and then generate all three or whichever reports are in your series of reports that you would normally run, just to save you that bit of time. Rather than you go into nominal codes, run your three management reports, you might then go into customers, run an aged debtors, suppliers, run an aged creditors. You might go into products and services, run a stock valuation report, that type of thing. Right, let's have a look at that. Richard, you've got a question there. Abby's going to pick that up for you just with regard to accessing the nominal activity report. So I shall pick that one up for you, get an answer across to you. Right, anyway, let's have a look at these, quickly have a look at these three reports. Well, as I say, we'll concentrate on the profit and loss. So cross to my screen and we'll get stuck into some demos. So again, if you did attend the session this morning, you'll know we go into nominal codes. We've got the three icons at the top. When you run any of these reports, so again, if we just pick on the profit and loss, we'll preview it. The criteria that you're presented with enables you to, it's largely aimed at running this report for your current financial year. So easy to get at this information. So you click on the drop down, you've got the various months of your current financial year. So my set of data currently is January 2024 to December 2024. That's the financial year. So that's what that's listing as well. Now there is an option brought forward, and there is also an option for future. Now, the future option, the main limitation of that is it just looks at everything. So it's not date sensitive. So although I've entered transactions in 2025 now, what I can't do is say, right, I want to run a report for February 2025 only. So that's one of the limitations of this specific report, which is why we get that question. How do I run a profit and loss account for what will be my new financial year? So certain restrictions there, but we'll be covering the future financial year in just a little while. So again, if I want to run a management report for the current year, nice and easy. Just those icons at the top, they're really quick to run. Even if you've got hundreds of thousands of transactions, they're going to be quick to run because a lot of the calculation is already done for you. So we just okay that, preview it, and then we've got our figures that we're after. So we discussed this morning the difference between the period calculation and the year-to-date calculation. So if you did attend that, hopefully you've remembered that little bit. So period is as per whatever period you specified. Year-to-date is from month 1 to the end of the period you specified. So just so happens in this case, that default criteria, it's the same. It's the same period that it's looking at in this example. Right, okay. So we're going to move on, and next we're going to pick up on the future year. So the future year, as I mentioned at the beginning, that common question, you haven't run your year end yet. So in my case, I'm in 2024. How can I get a P&L for my new financial year? What options have I got? So 2 main options for you. Well, actually, there's actually 3, but we'll cover the first 2 that are listed. So standard report. So going into nominal codes, clicking profit and loss at the top, and choosing the period future to future. Now, when it does that, the information that you're after for what will be your new financial year is in the period column. You ignore the year to date, it is the period column you would need to look at. It's often overlooked. So if you just want a snapshot of your year to date figures for what is your new financial year, it's future to future. We'll see that one in the demo in just a moment. You've also got access to the transactional management reports if you're on the standard or the professional level of Sage 50 accounts. So you won't have this report if you're on the essentials level, but it can be added if you're on essentials, but there is a charge for that. But if you're on standard or professional, these reports are just standard ones for yourself. Now, to access the transactional management reports, you would go into nominal codes, then reports, and you'll have various management report folders. So if you went into profit and loss, there's a one called a transactional profit and loss. We'll see that in just a second. And when you run that, you can specify whatever date range you want, whether that's in your current financial year, a previous financial year, or into what will be your new financial year. And it doesn't have to be based around whole months either. Now, the idea of introducing this report at the time was that what people used to do to get around this sort of situation is that people would back up their data as it stood at the moment. They would then run a year end just to clear down their figures and advance the financial year. They would then go and run the likes of a P&L report because they're in the new financial year then. And then when they're finished, they restore back to their current position. Now, it does mean that that sort of scenario, yes, it's available to you. Great if you work by yourself, but if you've got colleagues who are working on Sage, it means that they need to stop processing while you follow that process through. And then once you've restored back to your current position, everyone can continue as normal. So although it's an option, it's not one we recommend. We normally recommend you go down one of the other routes at this stage. Right, okay, let's get stuck in with some demos then. So share my screen again. We're just going to go into the profit and loss. I'll preview it. So let's say I want a profit and loss for my new financial year. So in my case, I want it for 2025. I don't want any 2024 transactions included. I just want to see what my sales are for the new financial year, my purchases, my current net profit calculation, etc. So what we do is we choose the option future to future, and then we OK that. Now when we do that, this might sort of pick up on Heather's query a little bit here as well. Heather's just saying a period figures are the same as the year-to-date figures. So if you're accepting the default criteria, Heather, then yeah, they would. But we covered that in a lot of detail in this morning's session. If you haven't watched that one or haven't attended, watch out for your follow-up email. It'll be explained in detail how these figures calculate. But this period column is essentially what we're after. This is essentially the profit and loss for what will be my new financial year. Now, the issue that we sort of have with this one is it's not really date sensitive, this one. So if I'd entered some transactions, let's say next month, or even into my 2026 financial year, they would be included in the future period. So they would be being picked up in these figures here. Now, it's probably unlikely that you would enter 2026 transactions, but you never know. Some people do, just as a way of doing things like prepayments and accruals and making those sort of, if you've got things like standing orders and direct debits, you might use import as a quick way of entering those transactions for the rest of your financial year. So getting ahead of the game, booking them all in, rather than waiting for that point in time. So these are the figures you're after. Now you've got the same sort of functionality as normal. You can drill down on them. So if I click on that 182,583 pounds 59, I'll see the breakdown. So I can see which nominal codes are contributing to that value that we're after. And then again, we can drill down beyond that as well. So if I'm looking at that sort of 4002, we can see these are the transactions, and you can see on the dates. I'll zoom in a bit so make that a little bit bigger. So basically it's running nominal activity, and it's run that essentially beyond the end of what is the current financial year in Sage. So in this case, it's going to be from the 1st of January 2025 onwards. But there's no end date for that one. That's something to please bear in mind. So if you're just wanting sort of year to date for the next financial year, it's a very quick and simple way of checking those figures. Emma, your question there, the year to date in this scenario is the prior year. So the financial year that hasn't been run yet. So yeah, so just going back to that one, my year to date is going to be from month 1 of the current financial year, which on my data is 2024. So remember, it always runs from month 1 of your current financial year up to and including the period that you specify. So in this case, it's month 1 of 2024 and anything beyond that, because I've run it up to the period for future. So that's something to bear in mind. So that's the way to easily get at that information should you want it. Now, the second way, for those of you that are on standard or the professional levels of Sage 50 accounts, was to use the transactional reports. So within nominal codes, if I go into reports and we go into the profit and loss folder, you'll see there's also one for the balance sheet and the trial balance, but we're going to concentrate on profit and loss today. So we click into that. Now you might have different reports listed, but if you're on standard or professional, you should have the transactional profit and loss. So this one at the bottom. Now this one, when we run this report, you'll see the criteria is a lot different to what we've previously had. The previous criteria was just which chart of accounts do you want to use and when do you want to run it from and to. And that was based around calendar months. With this one, we're still offered the chart of accounts, so it'll still use that structure for your reports, but we are offered a transaction date range. Now I can specify whatever date range I want in there. So I wanted to run that for part of a financial year, part of a month. I can do that. So if you wanted to run it from, say, 6th of April to the 5th of May, you can do that. It enables you to do it. Remember, you've got the date picker tool as well. So quite often when you're prompted for a date range, you'll get this little sort of pencil icon, and that will give you the common periods. So if I choose next financial year, you'll see it automatically defaults to that. But let's say I wanted February only of what is my new financial year. I can do that. I can specify that. Just a case of popping in the right period. In fact, what I'll do is I'll run it for partway through March as well. So that you can see it doesn't have to be based around whole calendar months. So we just OK that. Now this report, it will take longer to run than the standard profit and loss because it's looking at individual transactions. So we just OK that. And what we're after is this information here, the period column. It relates to the date range that we've entered. So these would be the figures you're after. Year to date, it's still going to run from the start of my current financial year up to whenever I specify. So this is the one you're after, that period column. So again, nice and easy to get at that information if you've got that report available to you. You can see when we run this report as well, that in addition, we can also run it for a specific department. So this is the report you'd also have if you go via the departments ledger and you run the transactional or the departmental profit and loss from there. It's just you can specify the department when you're running it here, as opposed to when you run it for the departments area, you select the departments you want to run it for. So the only criteria you need to specify, if I'm looking for my new financial year, is the transaction date range. And remember that date picker tool. Once you spot that, if you haven't already, you think, oh, I never noticed that one. Just saves you keying in the dates or scrolling through the calendar, just to make that a little bit easier. So that's your options for your future financial year. Any additional questions? Let me see if I can help out with a few. So just to confirm, whose question's that one? Carol, did you say the year to date is the current year and the future date figures? Year to date is from month 1 up to whenever you've run the report up to. So the start of your current financial year up to and including the whenever you've run that report up to. So it's the period column you want if you're running that transactional one. And Emma, you mentioned there as well, the transactional P&L is also the one that you run for specific departments. Yes. The only thing it doesn't do with that report is it doesn't do departments side by side. That's something that could be achieved probably via Excel. It doesn't do it in Sage itself, but via Excel you could create that sort of potentially create that report. It's something that we do offer as a service. We can design that for you. Some reports that we get asked for regularly, they can be purchased via our report design team. So if there's anything that you really are missing and yet you'd really need, do get in touch. Right, excuse me. And Rima, you were just mentioning there as well that you can't get access to more information when you click on the nominal code in the second option. So when you're running those reports, the transactional ones, they're not drillable. It's just the standard reports that are drillable. So those 3 at the top of the nominal codes window. Right, okay, let's get back to the slides. So we covered the current year, 3 icons at the top of nominal codes. The future year, again, you could use the standard sort of P&L, future to future, or you can use that transactional report, which is what that one's designed for. But we want to go back and, well, what if we want to look at a previous financial year? What options have I got? How can I get a P&L for that financial year? Well, there's a lot more options available this time. PDF copies. Have you saved them? If you've got copies of them, well, nice and easy. You just, wherever you've got them stored, go and access it. You've got the company archive. Now, company archives been around a long time. If you've got archives which are created as part of the year-end process, then can you access that? The idea is you go into the company archive, it sort of takes you back to the data as it was at that point in time when the archive was created, including your financial year. And then you can then run whatever reports you want based on the data as it was at that point in time. If you're on version 31, you can restore a backup into the practice company. So again, another option. So if you've got a backup, say from let's say the end of your 2023 financial year, you could restore that into the practice company. Once you've done that, again, generate whatever reports you want, and then when you close out, it just resets your practice company. But it's another way of getting at that information if you haven't got the likes of PDF copies. You've got the prior year reports. It's at the top of the nominal codes window. You run that for as long as it's just your previous financial year you're after, means you can get at that information. Similarly, the comparative report. It's at the top of the nominal codes window. We'll have a look at all these options in a moment. And then, of course, there's the transactional management reports themselves. So that transactional profit loss, you could run that for whatever date range you want. So again, if it's your previous financial year, you're trying to get a P&L, you've lost it, you haven't got any other copies anywhere, then you can still get out that information. But there is one subtle change that you need to make when you run it for a previous financial year. So let's run through these options just to see what I'm actually referring to. Back to my screen. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm in the 2024 financial year. So what I'm going to quickly do on this set of data is I'm just going to quickly run a year end on it, just to advance the financial year into 2025. So I'm not too concerned about these settings. Again, if you never run year end before, you want more information, there's webinar recordings, we've got live sessions booked in, get yourself signed up for one of those. So I'm just going to quickly run it. It'll obviously clear down my year-end figures for 2024 and advance my financial year. So we'll just quickly continue with that. I'll cancel that one. Okay, that. And then, as you can see, financial year now starts January 2025. So when I'm talking about a previous financial year, we're going to be looking at the 2024 financial year. For this set of data, that's the previous year. So first option, did we save PDF copies? Now let's see if I've still got them. So on my desktop, I've got a folder here called Sage Reports. And I've got a subfolder which I just called Year End 2024. And prior to running a year end, you would normally run various reports off. So if I wanted a P&L, if I've run that and I've saved it, I've got nice, easy access to it. It's a PDF copy. Nice to get at that, nice and easy. Let's get back to Sage. Second option was to access my company archive. So we go into File, Open, Company Archive. You might have quite a few company archives listed. Generally, you would maybe take a year end, it would do it automatically as part of the year end process. But you can do them at any time. But I've got one there that was created as part of that year end that I just quickly ran there. It says year end 2024. If I just select that one, open it, it will prompt me to log in. And that's me in. I can tell I'm in the archive. It tells me at the top here. It tells it archive. And also, you'll notice at the bottom, January 2024. So I'm actually, when working in the archive, and I'm in exactly the same position as when I started the webinar. That's what this data is. I didn't enter anything else. We've just created an archive as part of that year-end process. So it's taken an exact copy of the data as it stood at the time. That means if I did want a financial year P&L, for instance, for 2024, into nominal codes, exit the P&L, just preview it. And then we can specify, we're back to the calendar options being in that 2024 financial year. So we can easily get at that information. So you'll see, for those of you that were, I'm sure someone wrote that figure down, it's got the same values as when I demoed that at the beginning of the webinar. So we can get at that information via an archive. Now the other option, let's see if I've got one on my desktop. I probably don't at this stage, but I'll find one. Right, let's go back to Sage, and we'll go back to my live company. So open company data. So that's me back into it. So it tells me that the financial year on this set of data, the live company, is January 2025. It doesn't mention archive at the top now. Right, now let's say I don't have an archive, but I've got a backup. Now what I don't want you doing is backing up your current data, restoring a previous and older backup, running whatever you need to do, and then restoring back to your live information. Better way of doing it these days, you go to the practice company. So File, Restore into Practice Company. It's then just a case of you browsing for the backup that you want to use. So let me just browse through to find my relevant backup that I'm using for today's session. Have I got one? It'll be that one. So I select that, the relevant backup file, and then I just continue to restore it. So it restores it into the practice company for me, prompts me to log in. So I can tell I'm in that, well, it's very obvious now this time that I am in the practice company and I've restored. It's got the yellow bar at the top telling me that. But you'll see on this set of data that I've restored, it takes me back to January 2024. So again, I can go into nominal codes. I've got the likes of the profit and loss still, and I can do whatever I want at that point. I can get out the information, run my reports, and then when I've finished, just a simple case of going back to my live company. So File, Open Company Data. So this is the one I want. Just log into it like normal. Obviously the yellow bar disappears from the top because I'm now back in my live company. You'll see that the financial year in my live company is still January 2025. So those were the first three options. Nice, easy options to get at that information. But what other options you got? Let's cover the other three that were on the slide a few minutes ago. So one is to go into nominal codes, and you've got these options here, prior year and compare P&L. Let's start with a prior year report. If I run that one, preview it, and I'm back to the same criteria as we have for a standard P&L. Now what this report does, if I just run it for the full financial year, I need to specify the period for the current year that I want the equivalent period for from my previous financial year. So let's say I just wanted it for the full financial year for 2024. I specify the full financial year 2025. So we just OK that. A little bit more information on the standard P&L, but we've got actual figures. Actual is based obviously on your current financial year, and you've got your prior year figures, which again are drillable on this report. So that prior year would be essentially they're the figures I'm after. So this is looking at the full financial year for 2024. Obviously, you've got some other values in there as well, ratio and a variance value as well, but it's the prior year column that's going to show you the values that you're after. Next one is the compare P&L. If we just click onto that one, it's going to be similar. So you specify your relevant period. That would be the equivalent of last year's period as well. So again, if I just specify the full financial year for 2025, I will have the option. I'm going to ignore the budget figures, so I'm going to say do not show for that one. But the prior year values get various options. I can show it with a variance. I can show all, which is both the actual figure, the variance, and the value as percentages. So let's choose that option. I'll just OK that. Now this one can be absolutely tiny. You're never going to see that on my screen. You probably hardly see it if I zoom in. But what we see, this is equivalent, I suppose, of what we've just looked at as the prior year report. But you've got options to say, right, which figures do you want to include and which ones don't. So if I just run it again as an example, I'll to switch off the budgets, and for the prior year values, I'll choose those figures only. So again, if I zoom in, I'll try to zoom right in, and then I'll just scroll down a bit so you can see them. So what we've got is we've got the current financial year, 2025, and it compares that to the equivalent period from your previous financial year. So it's, again, a nice, easy way without having to restore or access a live, restore or access an archive or anything like that. You've got those figures on tap should you need them. So it's just that prior year column that you'd be referring to. Now, the last option is the transactional profit and loss report. Emma, you were mentioning, why does it come out so tiny? It comes out so tiny purely because of the information it needs to potentially display. You can, of course, send that information across to the likes of Excel if needed. So you've got send data to Excel, send report to Excel. Then you can play with the fonts yourself then in that case. But the standard report, potentially there's a lot of information that it needs to include on that report. Carol, you were just quickly asking about the archive. Just quickly pick that one up for you. I'll quickly demonstrate that one again for you. So the archive, just to confirm that one, file, open, and then you've got company archive. If you want to find out more, anyone wants to find out more about company archives, then we've got a great webinar recording in our library. So again, remember the links are included on your follow-up email. That will explain the ins and outs of taking archives, accessing it, and what you can and can't do with them. Right, okay, back to the transactional profit and loss. Now with the transactional profit and loss, one little change this time. I'll show you what happens if you don't make that change first of all. I'll explain the change in a moment. So if we go into nominal codes, reports, and profit and loss, transactional, and let's say I want a profit and loss for my 2024 financial year. So I'm going to specify the relevant financial year. Again, I'll use that date picker tool, so it puts it in automatically for me. And we'll just OK that. Now you'll see in this instance that we've got nothing. So if you've ever run this report and thought, oh, Why is that? It's basically because when you've run year end, it posts journals to clear down your previous year's figures. And those journals are dated on the last day of that financial year. So in this example, 31st of December, 2024. So what you need to do not necessarily change the date range, is to pop into your transactions list, find the ledger year-end journals, which in my case is really simple because it was the last thing I did transaction-wise, and find the start of those journals. So in this case, it's that one, and make a note of the transaction numbers. So in this case, it goes up to the journals start at 5988. So what I want to do is I want to run that report for the previous financial year, but I want to exclude those ledger year-end journals. So to do that, I just go back to nominal codes, into reports. I'll choose the transactional profit and loss again. Specify the relevant date range, so last financial year. And what I'm after, I'll just leave it at transaction number 1, but this time I want to go to 5987, which is the transaction prior to those year-end journals. So what I'm after is all transactions that are dated within the previous financial year, but are dated or also numbered prior to the start of those ledger year-end journals. So if we just OK that, and as you can see, it's the figure we keep coming back to when we run the various reports. That period column will now show me that profit and loss report for that previous financial year. I hope that makes sense. It's the bit that catches everyone out, specifying the transaction range. So pop in your relevant date range, and then you want to run it from transaction 1 up to the transaction before your ledger year-end journals. Hope that makes sense. So those are your options. It's not necessarily you need to restore, or a lot of people think, well, you can't get at that information, and you can. It's just how you go about doing it. Right, just bring us to the end of the demos. So I hope you've enjoyed them. Remember, you will get a copy of the recording if you want to run through it at your own pace again, just for a bit of a recap. If you've got any questions, keep them coming. I'm going to hang around for another few minutes, just while I'll give you a chance to pop them in there. So I'll pop them in, just click that sort of a speech bubble, couldn't think of the name there, it's the speech bubble icon on your taskbar, and then it'll expand and you'll be able to start typing. If anyone wants a copy of the handouts, so maybe if you want a copy as just a prompt as to what options you've got, then do take that during the session. There will be included, a link to them will be included on the follow-up email though. Now remember, everything we cover, it's all a lot more detail is available from our help center. So if you want to find out more about transactional management reports, maybe you want to find out more about the profit and loss of the balance sheet side of things, then do check that out within our help center. Just open your browser, head along to sage.co.uk/help. For our upcoming sessions, we've got Copilot, which is on, I think it's on Thursday this week, Thursday afternoon. If you are interested, please get yourself signed up for that one. It's something you may have heard of. It's something that you may have seen little icons for in your various ledgers in your software, but you've not had a dabble with it yet. If you want to find out what it's all about, get yourself signed up for one of our Copilot webinars. The link to register, it's a standard page. Just follow that through. It's included on your follow-up email. Get yourself signed up. Also, get yourself signed up for the other sessions if you've missed any, and make sure you do attend one of the quiz sessions to help you qualify for that digital badge. They should be sent out within about the next 2 weeks. And remember, there are those follow-up sessions if you've missed any of the topics or you didn't quite qualify for the badge, but you still want to. Then we got those follow-up sessions in the first 2 weeks of May. Right, just bring us to the end of the webinar. We'll come back to questions in a moment, just just in case you've submitted them. We haven't had a chance to answer it yet. If you're about to leave though, many thanks for coming along. I hope you have enjoyed it, giving you a little bit more insight into some of those options that you do have available to you. As usual, little survey pop up as you leave today's session. Do take the opportunity to complete that if you can. Be greatly appreciated. Rate the webinar, give us a score, share any thoughts, ideas, topics you'd like to see, how we could improve the webinars, anything and everything, pop it on there. Your follow-up email will be with you in around about an hour's time. So if you're about to leave, many thanks, and hopefully we'll see you again. For those of you that have outstanding questions, let's have a quick look at some of them. So Carol, you mentioned there, will you be able to hear the bit you missed on the recording? Absolutely. It's a full recording of the session. And mentioned running, or Heather, you mentioned there running month 1 to month 1 gives the same figures as running month 1 to 12. Do you need to check the chart of accounts? It'll not be the chart of accounts, Heather, sorry. So if you contact our support team, they'll be able to look at that with you. It's either that you've got no values beyond beyond month 1, so all of your values are in month 1, or potentially I would maybe check your data, and then if there are still no problems, get in touch with our support team and they'll have a look at that with you. It could be just that your monthly buckets need to recalculate. So they'll be able to have a look at that with you and guide you through if you need to do anything. Quick question from Francis. I think I saw another one on this as well. Is there an easy way to find that sort of the transaction number for the year-end postings? Let me just go back. So if I share my screen, what I did, because it's because it's something I've literally just done, it was nice and easy. So they were just tagged on to the end of my audit trail, as it were. To sort of easily find these, what I could do is just type ledger year end and do a search. And what it should do is only list the transactions that have that. Now you might have a few of these. You can see I've got some from 2021. You can apply a filter as well. So if you're looking for ledger year end postings only, just a case of pop that in the quick search at the top, and then it's just a case of scrolling up to based on that date, which would be the end of your previous financial year, and have a look for that first transaction. So I can see there it is there, 5988. So when I'm running that transactional P&L report, I want to run that for the relevant date range, and for the transaction range 5987. So you go into the transaction before. Hope that makes sense. Right, now I think we're just about up to speed with all of the questions. I will have a check through. So if you haven't answered your question, apologies for that. But we're going to end the webinar just at that point. And if we haven't answered your question, we'll get an email out to you as soon as we can. But once again, many thanks for coming along. I hope you have enjoyed that, and I hope to see you on some other webinars soon. Take care.